This is the Retirement Solution Podcast with financial advisor Jon Hicks, founder of J. Hagan Capital.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? It's a neighborly day in this beauty wood.
Why not start it with a little tickling of the keyboard?
With a little Mr. Rogers.
Little Mr. Rogers.
Tickling the ivories.
Tell me a person that does not immediately relax when they hear that song. Anybody of our age and generation. That takes us back to, remember, especially if you were sick, you were homesick, you got your soup and your toast, you watch Price is Right, and then you watch Mr. Rogers.
That's right. Absolutely.
It's
100%.
soothing.
There are a couple things. So like that Mr. Rogers, you get that piano in the background.
Uh-huh.
It's like Peanuts, right? Was it the Vince Guaraldi trio or whatever they were? Every time I hear that, and there's a new Justin Bieber song that came out that kind of has that little bit of that Peanuts jazz feel. And I'm like, that's pretty good.
Look at you working Justin Bieber into the conversation.
I was amazed.
Cool
My
dad.
daughters was like, Dad, have you heard that new Justin? I was like, oh, Justin Bieber, give me a break. And they're like, no. Listen, he's actually playing instruments again. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And he tatted up all over his face and his neck now, whatever. But then I hear this thing and I'm like, oh my gosh, it sounds like jazz from either Peanuts or like that piano we just heard in Mr. Rogers. It was good.
Well, turns out jazz it was, sir, because Mr. Rogers, beloved, he passed away. Oh, God, I can't believe it was over 20 years ago. I didn't realize it was that
Was it
long
20
ago.
years?
2003,
Wow.
over 20 years. He still remains one of the most iconic hosts in children's TV. This song, that familiar song we just listened to, did you know it was always a little bit different? So while Mr. Rogers,
Won't You Be My Neighbor?
While he's saying the lyrics, the piano accompaniment would subtly change. I was talking about jazz. They would subtly change from show to show and never played it the same way twice in a row.
I had no idea of that.
So now every time you hear that song,
that piano, they were doing, the runs. I was like, well, I forgot it. It was that intricate, but maybe it wasn't every time. Interesting.
So that's your little fun. You never knew that you needed to know fact of the day. Go and tell your friends and neighbors what you heard this morning
on a compendium of useless knowledge.
You heard it here on WHAS, ladies and gentlemen. Thinking about uniqueness and subtle changes. And the work that you do, while you don't play the piano, you do
not well.
You do run a lot of gameplays in the way of retirement planning and strategy, John. Because for all of us, the bigger picture, the idea of one big song is we all need areas of protection and income and growth and taxes and legacy and healthcare in our retirement. However, no two plans that you have ever built, at least until this point, have ever been the same, have they not, sir?
No, without question, it's a lot like jazz, right?
Yeah,
so you may have your exact same chords, you may have a similar chord progression, but it is not the same. You may not have the same bass, you may not have the same hi-hat, you may not have the same snare. Every single retirement plan, and thousands over the years, no two are exactly the same, even though we're accomplishing the same 5 things in every plan: protection, income design, tax strategies, wealth transfer, and making sure we got the right money for healthcare.
Yep.
If we do those 5 things, it is amazing how many variables that individuals make their plans unique. It always blows my mind when someone says, John, do you do that cookie cutter thing that so many of these other big box brokerages do? I'm like, honestly, I don't know what they do. I don't know how you could do it that way, simply because everyone is so different. Yeah. Some people want to front load their retirement. Some people want to travel a ton. Some people will go to, when they think about travel, they think about Branson, Missouri, or going down to Nashville for a long weekend of country music. And others like, man, I want to do a 21-day Mediterranean cruise. Yeah. They want to go to Italy, the Amalfi Coast, or they've been to the Amalfi Coast. Now they want to go see Rome and Florence and Venice before it's called completely underwater. And those have different planning needs. And believe it or not, because of the planning needs, they have completely different assets. People never realize that. It's what you want to accomplish will dictate the stuff you own in your portfolio. And then no matter how many times I have said that till I'm blue in the face, so many years, and people, when they finally see it, they finally realize, oh, this is what you're talking about. Because a lot of times, they say, hey, do you want to look at my portfolio? I'm like, at this point, it's kind of irrelevant. Let's find out what you want to do. What do you want to accomplish? When do you want to do that? Because there's a lot of things that I've learned over the years. By the time we get 74, 75, 76-ish, even if we want to travel, the knees don't feel quite as good. The ankles don't feel quite as good. We get a little more stiffness in the neck. So we really don't want to stay in an uncomfortable bed for too many nights in a row. And because of that, we need to plan for those things if they want to do those earlier in retirement, which is a different stress on a portfolio.
Okay.
But those are things we have to do, and skilled advisors do it masterfully, where you don't even recognize that it isn't a cookie cutter design because they are just great at how they do that. Now, I'm trying to aspire to that. I'm not saying I'm great. I'm just saying that's what I aspire to. Every individual person should have a unique design that helps them accomplish what they want to envision.
Jon and his team, they are here to help you figure out the unique construction of your customized retirement plan. If you are ready to start that conversation, we're here for you. RetirementSolutionRadio.com is our website, and our number 502-317-0840, or it's RetirementSolutionRadio.com. I heard somebody once reference money as a tool, and the point was your money is a tool to you for you to live the life you want to live, not the other way around. And yet so many of us, Jon, walk around thinking that the other way around, the opposite perspective of it. So how do you unpack this for people? Can you give us some ideas on some early processes that you get to help to figure out what somebody wants and needs in a plan?
Yeah. So right out of the gate, the first thing we're talking about is, how do you feel?
Yeah.
How do you feel physically now?
Okay.
How do you feel mentally now? Do you feel drained? If you could retire tomorrow, would you do it tomorrow? Do you really know for a fact that you really want to wait because you're stressed out about healthcare costs? Do you know you're going to wait to 65? So these next 3 years are some opportunities that we can create completely different opportunities if we plan on those things right. But my whole thing is like, when do you want to do that?
Yeah.
We start working on the bucket list day one before they've retired, because I want people to not just walk into retirement. I want them to springboard into what will make them the most happy, the most content, the most fulfilled, because I want them to have those opportunities and those experiences in the front end of retirement.
Sure.
Because it gives them something to look forward to and to talk about for the next 20 to 30 years in retirement. Think about it, Heather. How many times have you talked to, a couple, and maybe they're a little bit older and they've seen the world, or they've experienced some things, and it's so colorful the way they talk about it. They loved it. And those people that I meet that are like world travelers and they're well-rounded, I'm like, oh my gosh. And what I almost always find out, they retired a little early and they started doing these things early. And that's when they recognized, wow, I love traveling, but I really don't like staying in hostels when we go abroad. It's uncomfortable. I don't feel like we're seeing the right places, but we don't like the expensive places either.
Right.
We like right in the middle, and they understand these things. I love that. So when I'm talking to people, what I want to find out is, number one, what do you really want to accomplish and how quickly do you want to get to it?
Okay.
And I try to prompt them, if the numbers work, I try to prompt them about thinking about that a little bit earlier on, because it's a different stress on a portfolio. We need different assets at different times for those plans to happen. What a lot of people unfortunately do, they say, well, I'm just going to pull 4% a year. Here's how I'm going to space it out. And they think that they're very methodical. They think that they're being very smart and shrewd about how they're developing their plan, but there is no wiggle room. There is no flexibility. If they decide, wow, we probably need to do a kitchen remodel. We didn't realize that those extra 40 to 50 hours a week that we're in that kitchen, we love our house, but man, we should have done this a while ago. And it's not a $30,000 kitchen remodel. By the time they've looked at it, it's a $90,000 kitchen remodel. And they had to suck way too much money out of their portfolio too early. And now it messes things up. If we understand and we envision what we want to accomplish and when we want to do it, guys, everything gets very clear. Not only does it dictate when we pull the money, how we have it designed, what assets need to be in certain buckets and what they're used for, it opens up the entire world of opportunities for almost every one of us. I like building plans with the most flexibility, but I want to make sure that we're the most protected, because there will always be something that's going to go wrong. You almost always need to plan that not only could anything go wrong, there will be some periods of time where everything feels like it's going to go wrong. We plan for that. Whether it's going to be, hey, let's make sure that before we have any kind of health scares, let's go see Europe. Let's do it correctly. or people will say, wow, there's a lot of weird stuff going on in the world right now. Okay. But as soon as you're comfortable, let's go ahead and have that slush fund available. Maybe we need to do a kitchen remodel first, or renovate the bathrooms, or make sure we get handrails up in the right places, or maybe it's time to downsize first.
Yeah.
And if we do that, you won't have to bush hog, all that land anymore. You won't have to go, mow 9 acres anymore. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, we can save that money that you're not spending, or that time you're not spending, and do something appropriate with it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So many of the factors come in, whether it's taxation or wealth transfer or estate planning, in our minds, because I want to make sure that any decision our clients make, not only do they know they have the green light to do it, but it's not going to mess up any of the other primary issues that they want to accomplish in retirement. But that starts with honest conversations that, to be honest with you, have nothing to do with investments. Absolutely nothing. They have to do with motivations and timing that will enhance the quality of the next 20 to 40 years of your life.
At J. Hagan Capital, John and his team, they are ready to have these conversations with you. So let's start. The number you're dialing, 502-317-0840, 502-317-0840. Call us right now. Let's set a time on the calendar for an initial phone conversation with one of our advisors, just you and our advisor on the phone, a place where you can ask some questions, explain what your concerns are, and then we'll explain to you how we might be able to help you figure it out in a plan that is unique and customized to you. 502-317-0840. This is a no fee, no obligation initial step in the planning process, just a space to, again, have some candid, honest conversation and then begin the planning process so that you can do what you should be doing, using your money as a tool for the life you want to live, not the other way around. At J. Hagan Capital, we're here to help you do just that. It's that time of year, John, most wonderful time of the year. I call it the spending time of year.
I think it was a Target commercial. One of those commercials on radio. They've already got Christmas songs in the background of some of these commercials. And then I heard that they're thawing out Mariah Carey.
Mariah Carey's
She's already started to thaw out. So there we go. Here we come. I mean, we're right here. We just had Halloween.
Halloween's over, man. It's the Christmas season, baby. Let's go.
I'm telling you.
I'm just. It's a good time. Mariah's on deck. The jingle bells are jingling. The Christmas cocktails are cocktailing. That's what I'm here for. Let's be honest. Come on, it's Kentucky.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's the gift that keeps giving, Clark, all year round.
It's a beaut, Clark. All right, but before the year wraps up, or should we even say that before the holiday frenzy fully takes effect and takes over your life, know this, that when it comes to your money, before you start spending all of your money, because the stores are here for it, take some control of it. There is, in fact, time for you to make some moves before the end of the year, particularly when it comes to Roth conversions. We're going to address some of that information in the program today, but that's something that has to be done before the end of the year. It's not an April 15th deadline. It's a end of 2025 deadline for a Roth conversion. So
you got to be a little bit careful because some of those custodians, they run a little bit behind.
Yeah.
So if you wait for that last couple of weeks, you may not get that conversion done.
Don't wait.
Make sure. I would do it before Thanksgiving. I really would. Give the custodians, whether it's Schwab or Fidelity or Vanguard or any of these guys, just make sure they have enough time to actually get that done, or it could cost you a pretty penny when it comes to your taxes.
Well, we don't want that. John and his team, they're here to help you with that process. It can feel confusing and you don't want to mess it up. So if you've got questions about Roth conversions or other end of year items on your financial to-do checklist, we're here for you. 502-317-0840, or again, it's retirementsolutionradio.com. I want to start with the market because, it continues to touch record highs, which creates there are two kinds of people in the crowd, John. There are some that are fearing an inevitable plunge, and there are others, like wealth advisor Eddie Gabor on Fox Business, who say, hey, hold on. The bull market is not ready to stop yet. This is Eddie Gabor.
I think we'll still see some chop as we go into the month of November, but the setup is really strong going into the fourth quarter. And I think investors need to not worry about any short-term volatility and focus on where we'll be year-end as well as going into next year. We continue to say we see 15 to 20% more upside in the S&P as we look out to 2026. People are underestimating the growth trajectory we're going to see. So we continue to be very bullish.
So you can't fault anybody for being nervous about when it will start to go downward. We're all anticipating a correction. We have been for years now, John. What are the conversations that you're having with clients as far as participating in an upside? We want those gains, but we also want to prevent huge losses in another or in the next correction, not another, but what will inevitably come.
Yeah, so, we've had Eddie on the show. We've listened to a lot of his clips over the years, and he's not necessarily a perma bull. So, when I hear someone that says, hey, the market has a lot of potentially a lot more upside here, sometimes I listen. If they're the people that always say the market's going to go up, I'd kind of temper that a little bit, to be honest. But, Eddie doesn't always say that everything looks good. Having said that, this is the second most expensive that a stock market has ever been. It's truly the case. When you look at the Shiller price to earnings ratio, the only time that has been more expensive than today right now was 1999 leading into 2000, which of course was the huge dot-com bust.
Right.
And it basically, the market lost about 56% from 2000 to 2002. But the big one, the NASDAQ, which is all those tech high flyers like we see today, that lost over 80% from 2000 to 2002. So there's all kinds of stuff, though, that we can do to kind of protect ourselves or hedge our downside, but still participate. And these things have existed for a long time, but right now they may be kind of attractive. So some of the exchange traded funds or mutual funds out there, they call them buffer or barrier exchange traded funds. And what that means is there's a little bit of a protection built in. Maybe you can only go down 5 to 10%. That's a barrier. So if the market goes down 50%, you can only stand to lose a little bit. Now, there are other things out there that banks offer and insurance companies offer where they literally guarantee that you cannot lose your principal. Now, that's assuming that bank and that insurance company stay in business. So you always want to deal with a reputable company. But these companies will say, hey, not only will I guarantee you can't lose any principal, we will give you some upside potential. Maybe that's 5% or maybe that's 20% to the upside. They all are a little different. It's not a product concept. It's a process concept. If these sound good, you can basically lock in your principal, but maybe get 8, 9, 10, 12% on the upside. So not bad. So that allows you to participate in the up, but still protect your downside. Now, there's a lot of other things that I do in my office. I like to hedge things. I like to use derivatives. I like to use options. And what that does is it says, hey, I want to make certain that I can hold on to some of these gains for my clients and for myself.
Sure.
But in the event the market goes down more than 8 or 9 or 10 or 12%, whatever that pre-established guideline is, that option becomes valuable. And I start making money on either that stock or the market as the market goes down. Now, why would I do that? Well, a big reason for me is taxation. I don't like the idea of selling stock and have to face a tax bill, even if I protect some of my principal. So by utilizing options correctly, we can basically put a safety net on our portfolio. But if the market keeps going through the roof like Eddie thinks, guess what? We participate in 100% of it, except for the cost of that option. So all of these things exist. And here's my big takeaway from all this. We shouldn't be changing our plan very often when it comes to retirement, especially when we're talking about retirement assets. Now, if you're looking around, you say, oh my gosh, my portfolio is up 25, 30% over the last couple of years. Well, the question is, do you want to take some of those profits off the table and still lock in at some pretty good interest rates for your money markets or for gold or things like that have also done well, but they're a little bit more of a protection side. Should you consider doing that? I think that's always a good idea if you have earned money that you don't want to lose, right? It's not super complicated. It's kind of like, wow, I made a fortune. Well, let's lock in some of that fortune. Maybe not all of it, but a portion of it makes sense. Now, the other thing that we can all do is understand how to bucket our money, where we basically have our safety net bucket, and that's money that we might need over the next 1 to 3 years. So if we know that we want to pull income to spend, let's say we need 50 grand a year, well, maybe we put 50,000 a year for the next 3 years, 150,000. That's in super short-term treasuries and money markets and CDs and things like that, so that we know we got a 3-year runway where we don't have to worry about stuff anymore. We don't have to worry about the ups and downs of the market because we're good for the next 3 years, which for most downturns don't last too much longer than a few years. Now, some of them are terrible, but most of them, they don't last all that long. Now, that's the simple bucket. That's the now bucket. And then we have that intermediate bucket, right?
Yeah.
This middle bucket is what we want to create income. So this is where some people would have like an income annuity, or they would have bonds that may be a little bit longer term that may be paying us 5 or 6 or even 7%. There's all kinds of stuff out there that can do that. Maybe even quality dividend paying stocks would be in that middle bucket. And our whole point is that we don't think we're going to need that over the next 3 years, but it's going to be producing income. So even if the market goes up and down, it's going to be producing an income that we can consider spending or let it just, continue to roll and grow. And then the last bucket, and this is what most people are always talking about. They're talking about that 401k bucket, that IRA bucket, that Roth IRA bucket. Now, if you have designed your strategy well, you shouldn't even need to think about touching that last bucket for 10 years plus. I mean, that's how we design everything. We want to make sure, hey, if this is money that we can take a little bit of risk with, we want to make sure we don't need any of those dollars for at least the next 10 years. And for some clients, we build it up for 20, 25 years. Okay. This is essentially the never bucket, the money we may never need. And in those dollars, we can be pretty aggressive if we want to. We don't have to. But that way, we don't have to worry about the market going up and down and trying to time it. We know that we got 2 to 3 years worth of income set aside in bucket number one. That middle bucket, we're being paid good quality dividends or income while we're waiting for the market to come back if it goes down. And of course, if the market goes up, guess what? We made more money. And in that last bucket, that's money we don't need for a decade plus. Okay. So most of the time, if the market even does careen and fall off a cliff, 10 years is a pretty good time to try to earn some of that back before we need it. So if we just think about the bucketing approach, we don't have to get all alarmed in what Eddie thinks or what Robert Schiller thinks or whatever the talking heads think. Yeah. We can just be really wise about, man, some of those really good companies I like are 50% off. Why don't I take some of that safe money I had, maybe buy some good stuff 50% off? Guys, that's how you win in the long run. That's smart. It's buying low and selling high. That's the objective. So, regardless of all this stuff, if you do not have a proper game plan, guys, get one. The bucketing approach, I know it sounds almost rudimentary and silly. It works. It is elegant simplicity, and most everyone can follow it because it makes total sense. And I will assure you, if your financial plan makes sense to you, you'll probably stick with it. And if you stick with it, my guess is in the long run, you'll win. So set yourself up, no matter what happens in the market, to win by getting the right plan.
Jon and his team, they are here to help you put these strategies into place. Give us a call, 502-317-0840. We've got a teammate standing by off the air ready to help you set some time on the calendar for an initial phone conversation with one of our advisors. This is a no-fee, no obligation initial step in the planning process. Just an opportunity for you to ask your questions, share your concerns, and then we'll explain to you how we might be able to help you get answers to your questions, ease your concerns through the planning strategies that Jon was just describing and the work they do at J. Hagan Capital. 502-317-0840. If you're over 59, if you've saved $500,000 or more, this is where you're really going to see the benefits of this kind of planning take effect. So call us right now. Let's put a time on the calendar for your initial no fee, no obligation phone conversation. 502-317-0840. Maybe you want to call us up to begin the conversation about a second opinion, because a lot of folks do work with financial advisors during their working years, but are wondering, is it time for us to part ways? Signs that it could be time to fire your financial advisor.
Ooh.
It's a sign of the times.
Them's fighting words.
I bring all of this up because the conversation about football coaches this season has been crazy. Am I wrong?
No, it's been a crazy year. NFL, absolutely. There's all kinds of people looking like they're going to be on the coaching carousel.
It's happening, yeah.
The college football, too. I mean, there have been some crazy and outlandish moves across the entire football world landscape. So, yeah, there's a lot of people that may have different positions next year.
I was listening just this past week to Terry Miners talking on HAS in the afternoon about all the college football coaches. I went to Virginia Tech. We started the season kicking our coach to the curb. Brent Pry is looking for work. So I'm in the mix of it, but it's crazy. It's not just college football. It's the NFL too. We're mid-NFL season and several head coaches are in the hot seat. They're in danger of losing their jobs. Of course, with football, it's a little bit more in our face, right? We see the factors that come into play. There was a poor start to a season when there was high expectations for that team. There is a consistent losing record. It's been a while since the team has been to the playoffs.
Sure.
Just regular scores on a board. Very much in your face and easy to understand when it's going well or not. Now, thinking about having a financial advisor, a lot of us, for obvious reasons, would look to that person as a retirement coach of sorts.
Sure.
And how do we know if it's actually going well? Because financial ease is a real thing. A lot of us might say, I don't know, I think it's going well. So this is where I want to ask you, are there signs that we can look for that say, well, it might be time to quote unquote fire your financial coach and move on to somebody else.
It's interesting. So when you're kind of looking, NFL coaches or college coaches and financial advisors, they're really kind of interesting how they're kind of correlated when you kind of think about it. So when most of us are working and we're setting money aside, we typically want a growth-based advisor. Now, to me, this is kind of like the coaches that basically they win all those regular season games. For the longest time, it would be like Bill Belichick. Or back in the day, it may have been Madden, was a great coach for the Raiders back in the day, right? Yeah. They just win a lot of games, and that's great to get you to that point. Now, when we get to the point where we've been saving all this money, and this would be like the equivalent of the playoffs, right? Or the college playoffs or whatever it is, we probably need a guy that can win the big games. This is one of the biggest things about Franklin, who was recently fired from Penn State midseason. This is one of the greatest football coaches of a long time. Now, here's the problem, though. Penn State didn't like the fact that he couldn't win the big games. He couldn't win the big games against the people that they wanted to beat, and they kicked him to the curb. Now, this guy turned Vanderbilt into a college football juggernaut. They were always the doormat of the SEC, and the guy not only did an incredible job there, he went to Penn State and won a ton of games, but he didn't win the big ones.
Yeah.
And that's what we're talking about when we have all this money saved and we have a financial advisor, and he can somehow get us there, but unfortunately, somehow, we don't feel like we can be retired.
Made it to the Super Bowl, and we don't feel ready to play.
It's like the Buffalo Bills. They made it to the Super Bowl how many times, and how many times have they never won? And when it comes to retirement, we get one shot.
Yeah.
If we run out of money or we can't create the income we want to live the way we want, then unfortunately, that's kind of like losing, because we either have to work longer than we want to, or we can't live off of the amount of money that we would like to, or we just don't quite have enough. And is that coach's fault? Not necessarily. This is often when we want a different coach, right? So I'm a Kentucky basketball fan, and I root for Louisville too. I'm not a bandwagon jumper. It's just they both have great programs, but for different reasons, right? John Calipari somehow got the best talent in the world, but I'll be danged if he could not win the big games. The last big game he won was in 2012, and that's why he was gone. Now, they didn't technically fire him. He left, but the point is that UK fans were just mad. The guy could not win the big game. Basically, he couldn't get him through the retirement process. That's the whole point. So many of us, as we're growing our money, we want the guys that can give us growth and opportunities. That's really great. But once we're thinking 3 to 5 years for retirement, or this is when you're playing, say, oh my gosh, we got a winning record. We have a shot to really not only go through the wild card, we could get to the Super Bowl. Do we have the right coaches that can win the big game? Do we have the right talent? Do we need to put different players on the field? Do we need to make some last heroic trades in the tail end of the season so that we can make sure we win? This is often what I'm talking to folks and say, hey, even if you've been doing it on your own, when you're 3 to 5 years from retirement, this may be an opportunity where you actually start interviewing people to find out, do they have what it takes to get you not just to, but through the next phase, through the retirement.
Okay.
And it's kind of like if someone ever climbs a mountain, if you ever climbed Everest, you typically have two guides. You really do.
Okay.
You have the guy that gets you up the mountain, and you have a completely different guy, a completely different guide to get you down, because these skills are completely different. The terrain is different. The talent levels and what we need to be talented in are different. Plus, when you've gotten to the top, you're tired. You are so tired to come down. You have to exercise more caution. So often when I'm talking to people about financial advisors, hey, the guy's been really good. We were in NVIDIA, and we were in Facebook, and we were in all this stuff that went through the roof. It's great. It's like, awesome. How's he going to create your income plan? How are you being tax efficient? What does your CPA say about that? How can we be certain that if anything happens to you, that your surviving spouse won't have to sell some of this stuff and put her in a worse situation, and on top of that, potentially have a higher tax bill? All of those things are things we didn't have to worry about when we were just making money. Basically, that first coach that got us up there. But now everything changes. We got to figure out, can we develop the right amount of income? Do we have the right amount of protection to protect all that money? Or could it potentially be gone from a market calamity, or we're over concentrated in too much of one type of asset, or we're not diversified properly, or it can't create income, or it's in the wrong bucket, and we have to spend twice as much money in taxation because it's just in the wrong bucket. All those things often require different skill sets. So that's where I would say, maybe when you're getting ready to really consider 3 to 5 years for retirement, maybe you need to hire or consider hiring a different coach. It doesn't mean you could have the greatest guy in the world, but he may not be the right one to get you down the mountain or get you to that Super Bowl game, but have a real great chance of winning.
Well, at J. Hagan Capital, we certainly want you to win in the game of retirement. Our number is 502-317-0840 if you want to give us a call to start the conversation with Jon and his team. 502-317-0840, or you can go to retirementsolutionradio.com. Looking, again, for signs, for indicators that it might be time to switch. Perhaps somebody says to you, they just bump into you. You're at a party for the girls, and somebody says to you, Jon, I've got this guy. How do I know if he's the right guy? What are 3 questions that I should ask this guy that could tip me off that it's time to move on?
Yeah, so if you have done a great job saving, so if you've saved, let's say, $750,000 or more, and you own mutual funds, you do not have the right guy. Because if you have saved that kind of money, you are paying way too much in fees without question, whether you pay him anything or not. Mutual funds are unbelievably expensive compared to other alternatives. That's number one. Number two, they're tax inefficient. You cannot do anything to hedge a phantom tax bill from a mutual fund if you have that in taxable accounts. As a matter of fact, we just had a gentleman that came in. He had these mutual funds for 25 years. And he had about $4 million in mutual funds, and about $3 million were gains. Here's the problem. He has to pay taxes every year, Heather, on capital gains, and he has to pay taxes on income that those mutual funds spend off. And in 2022, he was down 21% and still had to pay capital gains and taxes on the distributions of income, even though he lost 21% in that account. Why? It's inefficient. He had way too much money. He should not have had mutual funds at all. Now, we can dismantle that. Even if someone has a $3, $4, $5, $20 million tax bill or $20 million of capital gains sitting in those investments, we now can use the new Trump tax legislation, the OBA, we can use that to diffuse and dismantle those tax obligations. Sometimes we can do it over 1 year. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3, but we can typically get down to single digit tax rates and tax expenditures, even if you have huge bills. So for me, the number one thing, you own the wrong assets, and expensive ones or tax inefficient ones are the telltale sign that you're dealing with probably an unskilled advisor. That's number one. Number two, if you constantly say, hey, yeah, but where's my income going to come from? If I decide to retire, I'm going to get $50,000 from Social Security, and I'm going to get $5,000 in interest from my bank accounts. Where's the other $50,000 that we want to spend? Where's it going to come from? And if he says, hey, we're just going to pull 3 or 4% a year from this diversified, high quality portfolio, guys, you need to have a written income plan, an actual definitively, granularly written income plan to say what exact asset in what exact bucket is going to pay you in years 1, 2, 3, in years 4 through 20. And then assuming that we live longer than that, how can we make sure we're keeping up with inflation for years 20 plus? Okay. Those are big ones. Income plans are huge because if we don't have the right income plan, chances are we're being tax inefficient and we could potentially run out. And that's what no one wants to do. The third thing and the last thing is if they are not working with a CPA, working with your CPA, if they don't have CPAs on their staff and you've saved $1 million or more, you are being underserved. We think it is unbelievably important when your largest expense over 20 to 35 years of retirement is going to be taxation from the federal government. And you look at the fact that your Social Security may be taxed, all of your income may be taxed. All of the money that comes out of your tax deferred accounts are going to be ordinary income, which is the most oppressive tax rate in the entire IRS structure. When you look at that and they're not helping you do that, you are being underserved. You can get a skilled fiduciary advisor who has CPAs and tax attorneys on staff, just like our firm, and potentially pay less money than what you're currently paying. And people are just unaware of that. I almost laugh when people say, yeah, they're with Ken Fisher. The guy charges 1.65% if you've got a $2 million account. That is absurd. They give no tax guidance. They have no CPAs that work for their firm. They have no tax attorneys that work for them. They don't give any estate planning advice. And yet they charge a most exorbitant rate that I've ever seen. And yet people go to that because the guy spends a fortune in marketing. You can do better. You deserve better if you've done a great job saving and you know what you're looking for. And what you want is protection, income, tax strategy, wealth transfer, estate design, and healthcare plans. As long as you have those, you'll probably win.
If you're working with an advisor, ask them these 3 questions. What am I invested in? Where will my income come from? And what is my tax plan for retirement? If you do not get clear and direct answers, it might be time to find a new financial coach. At J. Hagan Capital, we're here to help you take a second look, a second opinion. So let's start that conversation. 502-317-0840 is our number. Call us right now and put a time on the calendar for an initial phone conversation with one of our advisors. This is a no-fee, no-obligation step in the planning process, just a space to share what you're concerned about, what questions you have, and then we'll explain to you how we might be able to help. 502-317-0840. You can also go to the website, which is retirementsolutionradio.com. Click on the button that says find your retirement solution there, or call us right now. Let's put some time on the calendar. 502-317-0840.
I need a break, Donald. I need a big tax break. Biden's beef crisis has made me broke. Now my wife is leaving and it ain't no joke. I need a break, Donald. I need a big tax break.
Just in case you were wondering what the heck that song is, that is a Jon Hicks original.
That's right. We produced that.
Courtesy of the composition music strategy that can be available to all of us through artificial intelligence. You too can be a country music musician.
It's amazing.
This is you actually did. You came up with some good songs, and you're like, we got to play this on the radio show. And I was in. That actually, it's so funny. I'll find myself just standing in the mirror getting ready for work, and it gets in my head, John. It's a catchy tune. Kudos to you.
So it was crazy. You know, I had read an article that someone used artificial intelligence to create a Drake type song, and it made like the top 25 list. Yeah. On whatever TikTok or whatever it was. I was like, there's no way that artificial intelligence is that good.
It's good.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you just listen to that is 100% AI. All I did was create the actual lyrics and I gave it the style that I wanted it to use. And it had created the voice, the background, the instrumental, the everything. And here's the crazy thing, guys, it's considered 100% original. Now, I didn't create the music, but I produced it. And how crazy is that? You
gotta put a license on that. You gotta get royalties, John.
Yeah. And that's the whole thing. So, you know, it is crazy to me, but this is what AI can do.
Stay tuned is all we can really say about it, because we have just scratched the surface, I believe, in the conversation of artificial intelligence. The work that you do, though, still very relevant for so many of us. And the song I actually was playing about, you know, needing a break, a tax break. So many of us do. So many of us are concerned about where taxes are headed. Rest your ears on this headline, ladies and gentlemen of Louisville. There was this article online. The headline is, I am 80 years old and my RMD is $300,000. What the heck am I supposed to do about my huge tax bill? 300. Can you imagine? That's just his RMD, and that's just his RMD.
I bet I get stories like that or issues like that, or I'm meeting with people every month. That's not a joke. There are between 6 to 20 people a year that I run into that are in their mid 70s to close to 80, and they have to take hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, even if they don't want to, even if they don't need it. And here's the issue. When you talk to a lot of these folks, and I do it all the time, when they put that money away inside of that IRA, and of course it grew, they may have gotten a 20% tax break on the $10,000 that they put in. And now they have to pull out $300,000 and they're in the 40%, nearly 40% tax rate. So they got a whopping $2,000 tax break for them to now pay, in this example, $300,000 at 40%. That's $120,000 in taxation.
God bless America.
For that $2,000 tax break. So I talk about this all the time. This is probably the biggest problem that I see with most people's retirement finances. It's not that they haven't done a good job saving. It's not that they're not diversified. It's not that they couldn't produce income if they wanted to. Most of the time, they have no idea how big that tax time bomb is in their accounts. And if they don't consume enough of that money, if they're not spending it and utilizing it or gifting it or giving it or doing proper things with it, the government's going to end up with nearly half of it, Heather, nearly half. When you look at the highest marginal tax rate plus the NIIT, thank you, Obama, for that extra 3.8% of extra taxation, and the state taxes, if you're in a state that has a tax in it, you could easily be giving up nearly 50% of all the money that you saved your butt off for and worked for your butt off for for the last 25, 50, 100 years. That's not a joke, but it can be fixed. But you have to understand, and you have to have a skilled advisor to help you dismantle that.
Yeah.
But we see it all the time.
Okay. For you listening to us on HAS today, if you are feeling the pressure, or maybe you're just concerned about the pressure you're going to feel when it comes to the tax bill you have to pay in the years ahead, if you have questions for Jon and his team, let's get to work helping you understand what your options are for retirement, for your tax plan for retirement. 502-317-0840 is the number to call us right now. Let's put a time on the calendar to begin the conversation about figuring out your retirement tax plan. 502-317-0840. Getting back to this one gentleman who was asking about what can he do, Jon, it was interesting. He's got over $6 million in his IRA. Fascinating fact about this guy. He was a teacher. Absolutely. He was a teacher. And all of this, the $6 million has grown because he didn't use it. I guess he probably had a pension. And so it just compounded, and that compound interest anomaly that we know of and what it can turn into. And now at 80 years old, he's got $6 million being forced to withdraw $300,000. And it's another punishing example of what happens to people that are diligent and successful. It's also what we talk about strategies, though, like IRA to Roth conversions. So growing your retirement savings, that's one thing. Managing the tax is an entirely different challenge. Let's talk about strategies to avoid circumstances like this, please, sir.
Yeah, so this is, one of those things, and I had for many, many, many years, I would have to go toe to toe with CPAs who said, Jon, it doesn't mathematically make sense for someone in their late 60s to consider doing Roth conversions. And I absolutely argued definitively that they were incorrect for a few different reasons. Number one, if you do Roth conversions and you do them strategically over a course of time, not only are you potentially growing that money, especially if you own money that's in the United States stock market or international stock market or cryptocurrency, whatever it is, anything that has the opportunity to grow by 7, 8, 9, 10, 12%, because of compound interest will double every 10 years. If you get 7% a year on your money in a decade, you have twice as much money. Think about that. So if you just understand that, number one, you could potentially eliminate a lot of taxation in the long run. But here's the big thing. Just like this, the RMDs. People don't realize that RMD, even if you don't need it, the government makes you take it out, and then you have to be taxed on it. But because of that RMD, it may cause all of your Social Security, or 85% of your Social Security, to be taxed. It may increase without any question your IRMA, which is the amount of taxes you pay for Medicare. And we have seen people that should have only paid about $300 a month for their IRMA paying over $1,000 a month nearly between a couple because they had to pull out these RMDs. And guess what? Once that IRMA goes up, it doesn't go back down. So if you have to pay an extra $600 or $700 a month for the next 20 years of retirement, guys, that adds up. And I had to explain this to CPAs and let them understand, guys, no, it's more than just, hey, am I going to make an extra dollar or save an extra dollar this year? It's what are we setting ourselves up 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, 30 years down the road? Here's another factor involved in that.
Okay.
When you unfortunately are a single filer, when you are not a married filing jointly filer, the tax code is very oppressive. So if you have a joint family, a married filing jointly now, but you lose a spouse, all of a sudden, all of those RMDs you have to take, well, now you're in a much worse tax bracket. Basically, half of the amount of money keeps you in that same tax bracket. If you have the same amount of money or close to it, guys, you jump up potentially to the highest marginal tax bracket.
Yep.
And we have seen this all the time where people did a great job saving. Unfortunately, one of the spouses gets sick and they pass away, and all of a sudden the surviving spouse loses their Social Security bucket of either their own or their spouse's, but then they are paying a higher marginal tax rate on all of the money that comes out. Guys, it's insult to injury. So we want to make sure that we're being strategic. Should we do Roth conversions? Are you speaking to a CPA who only files tax returns? Or are you actually talking to a skilled mathematically financially minded advisor who understands the tax code? That's what we have in our office. We have tax attorneys and CPAs that help us do these things. Now, because of the more recent Trump legislation, or at least Congress and Senate passed the OBA, One Big Beautiful Bill Act, there are several attractive ways now that we can utilize the tax code to help diffuse some of these big tax bills. Because people say all the time, well, Jon, if I do a Roth conversion, then I'm really just paying taxes now that I wouldn't have to pay later. Correct. But you can use several different attractive advanced strategies. If you're a multimillionaire, these are what you want to have access to. Most of us just didn't have access to it. We didn't know about it. And frankly, before the new tax code, we couldn't have even done it the same way.
Okay.
But the maths differently now.
Yeah.
So when we're thinking about those things, we want to be certain we're strategic about Roth conversions. But the biggest thing I see is what assets are in what buckets.
Okay.
People consistently have the wrong assets in the wrong buckets. And here's the big one. If you have your high flying stock funds in your IRA or 401k, guys, that's probably a no-no. We want to try to have our most stodgy investments in our tax deferred accounts, because if all of those high flyers do what we hope to do, you're going to keep deferring taxes to a later date on much higher chunks of money. So we want to make sure that we have the right assets in the right locations, and we want to be strategic about how we pull those withdrawals out that we live off of. There are mathematical ways that every one of my advisors, and there's not just me, there's about 8 of us, every one of us understand the mathematical sequencing to ensure that we're paying the least amount of taxes that year, but we're setting ourselves up to win on the tax code in years 5, 15, 20, and when it goes to the next generation. That is super important. It's all doable, but you have to actually have a game plan to accomplish it.
RetirementSolutionShow.com is where to go to start the conversation with Jon and his team. We've also got links posted in the show notes, so you can just click there. Let's get started. RetirementSolutionShow.com.
Thanks for listening to the Retirement Solution Podcast with Jon Hicks. Begin the conversation about your savings plan with Jon and the team at J. Hagan Capital by visiting retirementsolutionradio.com. Be sure to listen to Jon's radio show, The Retirement Solution, Saturdays at 8 a.m. and Sundays at 9 a.m. on News Radio 840 WHAS.
J. Hagan Capital Incorporated is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if J. Hagan Capital Incorporated is licensed in your state, please call 502-690-5635. J. Hagan Capital Incorporated is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide legal or tax advice. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through J. Hagan Capital, LLC, NPN number 188279094.